Photo Equipment Part 3, Lenses, a presentation for the advisor. Lenses is the third video in the equipment series. What we will cover: dSLR lenses availability in 2024, lenses by use in sport, specific lenses, human factors, issues, what lenses are available in 2024 summer, general and sample lens kits, and a summary. dSLR lens availability 2024. With the migration from DSLRs to mirrorless cameras, both the OEM and third-party lens makers have been discontinuing DSLR lenses with no replacements. So, you need to plan to get your DSLR lenses sooner rather than later. If you wait, those lenses may be gone and unavailable. The following lenses that we use have been discontinued: the Sigma and Tamron 17-50 2.8 gym and theater lens, the Tamron 70-210 f4 field lens, and the Tamron 35-150 2.8-4 field and gym lens. If you have DSLRs, the only source for these discontinued lenses is the used market: KEH, Roberts Camera, B&H, Adorama, etc. Lens recommendations. I'm including lenses for both APS-C and full-frame cameras. What lenses I recommend is based on use: general purpose, theater, and sports by venue. Non-sports lenses: general purpose, theater and performing arts center. General purpose: it's a single lens that will be usable for many events without the need to change lenses. For APS-C, 18-135 class lens, which includes the 18-135, 140, and 150. Full frame, 24-105 or 24-120. For APS-C, the common kit lens, the 18-55, will have to be supplemented by a longer lens, like a 50-200 or 70-300. That will require carrying and changing lenses more often. This becomes a hassle for the students. The 18-140 wins for convenience. The theater, usually dim lighting. Lens depends on the coverage width desired. For APS-C, 17-50 2.8, which has been recently discontinued, or the full frame 24-70 2.8. This is for the wide shots of the entire stage. 70-200 2.8 or 70-204 for the tighter shots. And for full frame, 24-70 2.8 for the wide shots, and 70-200 2.8 or 70-204 for the tighter shots. When holding the longer, heavier lens up for long periods of time, you will want to support the lens on a monopod or tripod. The lenses will get heavy when you're holding it for a long time. Caution: not all long lenses have a tripod foot. Some have a tripod foot available, but as an optional item. Sports by venue: field, football, soccer, and lacrosse; diamond, baseball and softball; gym, volleyball, basketball, badminton, and wrestling; pool, swimming, water polo, diving; tennis, track and field and cross country; golf, bowling, and air riflery. Field, football, soccer, and lacrosse. Day games, plenty of sunlight to illuminate the field. From on the field, APS-C 18-135, 140, and 50-200, 70-300, and 18-400. Full frame, 70-300. From on top of the bleachers, APS-C 18-400, and full frame 100-400 and 150-600. Take a note on this slide. There are two lines, APS-C and full frame. Just because a lens is not listed on the APS-C line does not mean you can't use it. You can typically use full-frame lenses on your APS-C camera. For instance, the full-frame 150-600 can be used on an APS-C camera. Lenses for the field: football, soccer, and lacrosse. Night games. Night games under lights require faster lenses than day games. This is to deal with the lower light level. Keep in mind, at away games, lighting at other schools may have been built to different standards than your school, so the light level may be lower than at your school. So the lens, various 70-200 2.8. Pro for night games, the f2.8 lens is probably the best lens to use. But the con is the 70-200 2.8 is a heavy lens, and students may have to use a monopod. Some students may not even want to lug it around, and if the students do not use the lens, it is a wasted purchase. This will probably be your most expensive lens, especially the OEM models. Nikon Z 70-180 2.8 and Tamron 70-180 2.8 in the Sony mount. Pro, about half the weight of the 70-200 2.8. The only difference is it's just a little short on the long end, but the difference between 180 and 200 is too small for you to really notice. Next, various 70-200 f4 lenses. Pro, about half the weight of the 70-200 f2.8 lens. The con, it's one stop slower than the f2.8 lens, and that may not be fast enough on dim fields. Next, Sigma 50-100 1.8, 105 1.4, and 135 1.8. These are the fast lens. They're faster than the f2.8 lens for the very dim fields. The con, these are big lenses with no optical image stabilization. So stabilization requires a camera with IBIS. 50-100, it's a short zoom range, going only from 50 to 100, and it's APS-C only. It's not full frame. So your full frame guys, you're out of luck with that lens. The 105 and 135 are single focal length lenses. What lens should you use? To answer that question, you have to answer the next question. What is the light level at your field? To answer this question, we're going to do an exercise. Take a camera with a general purpose lens, such as the APS-C 18-140 or full frame 24-105, and a subject onto the field at night. You'll be taking a picture in the middle of the field. So of course the lights need to be on. Set the exposure on your camera. Exposure mode M, ISO 16,000, shutter speed 1/800 of a second, aperture f5.6. Take a picture with these settings. If the exposure on your subject is not good, adjust your shutter speed to get a good exposure. If you have to lower your shutter speed to 1/400 of a second or slower, then the light level on your field is low. Your night lens should be a 70-200 2.8. Just for reference, my exposure at my field is exposure mode M, ISO 8000, shutter speed 1/800 of a second, aperture f4 on a 70-200 f4 lens. Lens, diamond, softball and baseball. Day games, one lens for the entire field. APS-C, 18-400 or 18-300. Full frame, the Sigma 60-600. Two lenses. Infield, APS-C 18-140, full frame 24-105 or 120, and the Tamron 35-150 recently discontinued. Outfield, 70-300 or 100-400 or 150-600. Night games. Issue here is none of the high schools in my district that I know of have lights on their baseball or softball fields. So this is an extension based on shooting football. Basically, the fastest night lens you have is the 70-200 2.8. In the gym, volleyball, basketball, wrestling, and badminton. The big issue here is high school gyms are usually dim, requiring a faster lens. This is not Division I college or pro arenas. High school gyms do not have that kind of lighting. Next, away games. Lighting at other schools may have been built to different standards, so the light level at your away game may be lower than at your own school. Lenses, APS-C, zoom, 17-50 2.8, discontinued. But if you can find that, that's a great lens for the gym. 24-70 2.8 full-frame lens. Or the primes, 35 1.4 or 1.8, 50 1.4 or 1.8. For the full frame, zoom, 24-78 2.8 or 4, 28-75 2.8, 24-105 4, or the prime lens, 50 1.4 or 1.8. So what lens should you use in your gym? Just like on the football field. Question is, what is the light level at your gym? Take a camera with a general purpose lens such as the APS-C 18-140 or full frame 24-105 and a subject into the gym. You'll be taking a picture in the middle of the court. So you also want the gym lights to be on just like they would be for a game. Set your exposure mode to mode M, ISO 12,800, shutter speed 1/400 of a second, aperture f5.6. Take a picture with the above setting. If the exposure on your subject is not good, adjust your shutter speed to get a good exposure. If you have to lower your shutter speed to 1/200 or slower to get a good exposure, then the light level in your gym is low. Your gym lens should be one of the primes, 35 1.8 for APS-C or 50 1.8 for full frame. For your reference, my exposure at my gym is exposure mode M, ISO 6400, shutter speed 1/800 of a second, aperture f2.8, and the lens is a 17-50 2.8. Tennis, day games. Issue: during a match, we cannot be on the court. So tennis depends completely on where you can shoot from and how far you will be away from the players. None of the high schools in my district have convenient viewing positions to shoot all the courts. I am often shooting through the chain link fence. So what do? Shoot close during practice or warm-up when you can go onto the court surface, or once the game starts, through the fence. Lenses, APS-C 18-140, full frame 24-105 or 120, or the 35-150, which has been discontinued. When you have to shoot from a distance, APS-C 18-400, full frame 75-300 or 100-400. Swimming, water polo, and diving. These are day and night or indoor games. Outdoor pool, daytime, sunny. General use, APS-C camera, 18-140, full frame, 24-105, 120, or the discontinued 35-150. Longer distance, 75-300 or 100-400. Indoor pool or outdoor pool at night with lights. For the wider shots, 24-70 2.8, and for the tighter shots, 70-200 2.8. Lenses, track and field, day game. There are many events with different needs. Different distances to the subject will call for different lenses. You have two options, one lens or two lens kit. For the one lens kit, APS-C 18-400 or the full frame 24-120 or the discontinued 35-150, or the Sigma 60-600. For the 2-lens kit, your general purpose lens for when they're somewhat close, the APS-C 18-140 or the full frame 24-105. And for the long shots, 75-300 or 100-400. Then the night games. You're in compromise mode here. 24-70 2.8 for when you're close, and the 70-200 2.8 for when you're far. And 200 is all you can do. Your long shots, there's no 300 and 400 within the reasonable price range. Cross country, APS-C 18-140 or full frame 24-120. Golf, it's a day meet. Two options, just like track and field. One lens, APS-C 18-400 or 18-300. Full frame, the Sigma 60-600. Two lenses on two cameras. For the closer shots, APS-C 18-140, full frame 24-105 or 120. For the long shots, 100-400 or 150-600. The reason we talk about two cameras is, in practice, using two lenses and switching between lenses is difficult. You're going to be going back and forth between your two lenses. It is much easier to just grab the second camera with the mounted lens. So if you need the short lens, you grab camera A. You need the long lens, you grab camera B. Don't bother with changing lenses. Bowling, it's an indoor sport. Your lenses for APS-C 17-50 2.8 or 24-70 2.8 and a 70-200 2.8 for the long shots. Full frame 24-70 2.8 and a 70-200 2.8. Air riflery. Venues are indoors and outdoors, although primarily indoors. Your lens is APS-C 17-50 2.8 or 24-70 2.8. And for the long shots, 70-200 2.8. For the full frame, 24-70 2.8 and the 70-200 2.8. Outdoors, 18-140 plus the 75-300 for the long shots, and for full frame, 24-105 plus the 75-300. This is a condensed table of the sports and suggested lenses. Down the left side are the venues and the sports. Across the top, we have two columns, day and night/indoors. In the cell, for instance, for football, we have A equals 18-140. That means APS-C used the 18-140 lens. FF is the full frame. So you have the two lines, one for APS-C and one for full frame, and same for all the other cells. What lenses do you need for APS-C? Remember this screen? This is from the requirements video. You need to look at your sports and your situation. Remember the away games? If you don't shoot at away games, you don't need away game lenses. So you can simplify your selection. But remember, you may have things beyond just sports, like the theater, if you have a theater. Specific lenses, 24-70 2.8, 70-200 2.8, Tamron 18-400, and Sigma 60-600, and the primes 35-1.8 and 50-1.8. Why the 24-70 2.8 lens? You need a fast lens for gym sports. It is a standard indoor sports lens for a reason. There are no other zoom options for APS-C. The prior lens that we recommended, 17-50 2.8, was discontinued in 2023 with no replacement. Prime alternatives, APS-C and full frame, 35mm and 50mm lenses, f1.4 or f1.8. Cost. The 24-70 2.8 is not an inexpensive lens. The OEM version of this lens are from $1,600 to over $2,000. The third-party versions of this lens are from $1,000 to $1,500. Why the 7200 2.8 lens? You need a fast lens for night field sports. It is the standard sport lens for a reason: flexibility and speed. And there are no other option for most DSLR cameras. Cost. This is not an inexpensive lens. The OEM version of this lens are all over $2,000. The third-party versions are from $1,300 to $1,500. 7200 f2.8 versus f4. The primary differences between these two lenses: the speed. f2.8 is one stop faster than f4. The value is at dim fields where the f4 lens is too slow. There is a field here that I will not shoot a night game at. The field is so dim that my f4 lens basically cannot shoot there. I would need an f2.8 lens at that field. Weight. 7200 2.8 lens is twice the weight of the f4 lens and larger. Do not underestimate this issue. Price. The 7200 2.8 is up to 2 times the cost of the f4 lens. So, where can you use the f4 lens instead of the f2.8 lens? If your field or venue has enough light at night, such as my field, you can use it just fine. Or during the day. Other f2.8 alternatives to the 70-200 2.8. Tamron 70-180 2.8 for Sony, and Nikon Z 70-180 2.8 for the Nikon mirrorless cameras. Both of these have f2.8 speed, but similar in weight to the lighter 70-200 f4. However, neither lens has OIS, so the camera has to have IBIS to have stabilization. Next lens, the Tamron 35-150 2-2.8 for the Nikon Z and Sony. And Fuji, the 50-140 2.8. The 18-300 or 400 and 60-600. Why these lenses? Convenience. Very wide zoom range. You do not have to switch lenses or carry 2 cameras. For instance, you're going to shoot baseball infield. Base batter makes a hit. You just turn the zoom ring, then immediately shoot the outfield catch. You don't have to switch to a second camera. Makes it a lot easier to get the outfield. However, limitations. These are slow lenses. They're daytime lenses, not nighttime lenses. 18-400 is APS-C only. DSLR, Nikon and Canon. Mirrorless, Sony and Fuji. 60-600, full frame, DSLR, Nikon and Canon. Mirrorless for Sony. Prime lenses. The fast prime lenses are used when the light level is just too low for even the f2.8 zooms, such as in the gym. 35 and 50 millimeters primes, f1.4 on the field, 105-1.4, 135-1.8. Limitation with primes. You have one focal length. Some shots will be too wide and some shots will be too tight. Human factors and issues. Human factors. Weight. Some of the students are under 5 feet tall and less than 100 pounds. They cannot handle a heavy kit like an adult can. If the lens is too heavy for the student to carry and use, they may not use it. Lesson learned. We had a 70-200 2.8 that sat in the cabinet for over 2 years. None of the students wanted to lug it around. This is the case with the 7200 2.8 and the 150-600 lenses. Ideally for sports, you want the zoom rings on the lenses to turn in the same direction, switching from lens A to lens B. If the zoom ring turns in opposite directions, that could cause confusion. I shoot Nikon. I used the Sigma lens once. Sigma lens turned in the opposite direction from my Nikon zooms. I kept turning the lens in the wrong direction. After 15 minutes of that, I just gave up in frustration and put the Sigma lens away. Nikon, Fuji, Sony, and Tamron turn in the same direction. Canon and Sigma turn in the same direction. So as I mentioned before, Sigma lens on a Nikon and you're going to be turning in the opposite direction. Same thing if you put a Tamron lens on a Canon. Stabilization. Today, if the camera does not have in-body image stabilization or IBIS, the long lens should have optical image stabilization or OIS. The long lens benefits the most from OIS. Caution, sometimes when you look at kits, that 70-300 lens, which is commonly sold in those kits, does not have OIS. They do that so they can keep the price of the kit down. And that is a bad idea. Do not buy it. You want a stabilized long lens. Issues. Lens selection purchase is a compromise between cost, performance, and weight. Cost. Pro-grade lenses are more expensive and heavier than non-pro-grade lenses. OEM lenses such as Canon, Fuji, Nikon, and Sony are generally more expensive than the third-party lenses such as Tamron and Sigma. Long focal length zoom lenses are generally more expensive than shorter focal length zooms. So when you look at your 7200, why is it more expensive than the 24-70? It's a longer zoom lens. Those longer focal length cost more. Use. If a lens is rarely used, why buy it? You spent money for nothing. When starting up, you may have to budget 1 or 2 lenses a year until you finally have your desired kit. DSLR lens availability 2024 summer. Both OEM and third-party companies have been discontinuing DSLR lenses with no replacement. You are forced to buy from the used market if you want any of those lenses, and I've had to do that. You have to buy your lenses before they become even more difficult to find. Mirrorless lens availability in 2024 summer. Nikon and Canon are still building their mirrorless lens systems. There are holes in their APS-C mirrorless landscape, just as they had holes in their DSLR landscape. Third-party manufacturers are slowly making lenses for Canon, APS-C only, and Nikon Z. Generally, you can use DSLR lenses on your mirrorless camera via an adapter, and that helps with some of the gaps. OEM versus third-party. Pros for third-party. Third-party lenses are usually cheaper than OEM, sometimes significantly cheaper. Third-party lens companies often make lenses that the OEM does not, plugging a gap. Cons against third-party. Currently in 2024, there are very few native third-party lenses for Nikon mirrorless. As of July 2024, Canon has still closed the full-frame RF mount to third-party autofocus lenses. So, if you have a Canon mirrorless, you can only buy Canon RF mount lenses or use EF lenses on the Canon. Canon has opened their APS-C mount to third-party lenses. Third-party lenses may not work with a new camera model. You may have to update the firmware in the lens. To do that, some lenses may have to go back to the manufacturer's service center. Third-party DSLR lenses may not work via the DSLR to mirrorless lens adapter. And third-party lens adapters are not guaranteed to work. So if you have a Sigma adapter on your Canon and you put a Sigma lens on it, it may work, it may not work. Light level. Away games. Light levels could be lower at another field or gym. Alternatives. Get the fastest lens you can for each type of lens. Basically, you're going to look at worst case situation. Next idea. Ask someone who's shooting successfully at that away venue. You want to get his exposure data so you can back into the lens specs. If he says, well, I'm shooting at f1.8, well, that tells you your f2.8 lens may not work. You may need that fast prime. Bulk. The bigger the lens, the heavier and bulkier they are, and the more difficult to handle. The 70-200 2.8 is twice the weight of the 70-200 4, and the 150-600 is even heavier than the 70-200 2.8. Most students are much smaller than an adult. A lens that is easy for you to handle may be difficult for a small student. Think less than 5 feet and 100 pounds for them to handle. Long lens support. Long focal length lenses often require a support, either monopod or tripod, for stability and long duration shooting. The 70-200 2.8 will probably require support for the smaller students to use it. Most 75-300 lenses do not have a tripod collar. How will you support it? The Tamron 100-400 has a tripod collar. The Sigma 100-400 does not. What lenses are available as of summer 2024? Note, lenses are grouped by use category: general purpose, gym, field day, field night, and diamond during the day. The lens availability table that follows generally does not include discontinued lenses. There are a few exceptions. Note, Canon has dropped their EFM series lenses, so we do not have them in the tables. What is available? DSLR lenses below $2,000. This table shows you what is available for the various camera systems. You may look at this chart and say, hey, wait a minute. I thought Canon and Nikon had 70-200 2.8 lenses. Yes, they do, but those lenses are not below $2,000. This grain shows the lenses which are available below $3,000. So these lenses in red are the ones that cost between $2,000 and $3,000. And here are your 70-200 2.8 lenses. They're above $2,000. Same thing for the mirrorless. What is available below $2,000? For the various cameras, and in the $2,000 to $3,000 range in the red. So again, just like for the DSLRs, 70-200 2.8 for Canon, Nikon, and Sony are all over $2,000. A general lens kit consists of a general purpose lens, a long sports lens, and low light sport and event lenses for the gym, field at night, and the theater. These are just the buckets that we will use to select lenses for. Sample kits. This table shows 2 sample kits, one for an APS-C camera and one for a full-frame camera. Lenses are general purpose, daytime long, and for low light, gym, field, and theater. That was just a sample. In reality, you can make a whole bunch of different kits, all based on different requirements. Look at this screen. Option 1, general purpose lens 18 to 140, gym lens 24 to 70 2.8, field night lens, the lighter f4 zoom, the 70 to 200 f4, and your diamond lens 100 to 400. Option 2, we're going to go for the fastest gym and field lens because we have a dim gym and a dim field. So GP lens is the same, the 18 to 140. The gym, we're using the fast 35-1.4 and 50-1.4 primes. 2 stops faster than the 24 to 70 2.8. On the field, we're using the 70 to 200 2.8, 1 stop faster than the 7200 f4 in option 1. And on the field, we're using a broad range 18 to 400. Option 3, day games. We have no gym, so we don't worry about gym games. For the GP lens, the 18 to 140, in field and diamond, 18 to 400. So in option 3, we only have 2 lenses, whereas the other 2 options, we have 4. And these are not the only options. Based on what you need, you may come up with different combinations, or you may even need a 5th lens. So it all depends on your requirements. Example, this is the kit for my class. Camera, Nikon D5600 and D7200 APS-C cameras. General purpose lens 18 to 140, 1 on each camera. Gym lens 17 to 50 2.8. This was discontinued soon after we bought the lenses. So that lens is no longer available new. If you want that lens, you have to buy it used. So for example, if one of those lenses dies on us, let's say someone drops it and cracks it, well, we either buy a used 17 to 50 2.8 or we buy a new 24 to 70 2.8. Night field lens 70 to 200 2.8, and our diamond lens, the 18 to 400, and it says day because our baseball and softball fields do not have lights. So we only play baseball and softball during the day. Now, this kit was built over 3 school years. It wasn't built all at once, so we gradually built it 1 lens at a time. Summary. There is a general lens kit as shown in this table. But remember, your requirements. You may have specific requirements for sports and venues which will alter the general kit. What works for me may not work for you. The end. Please continue to Part 4 camera, and please like and subscribe.